A very good afternoon. This is Avanindra Som and you're listening to the news in detail on Gold FM.
The news headlines on Gold FM.
UK Deputy Prime Minister lands in Sri Lanka. Ordinary level exams begin today. Court rules on the series petition. Climate resilience metrics will be Sri Lanka's latest fiscal hurdle, warns economist. Trump to be indirectly involved in Iran nuclear talks. Sri Lanka get thumping win to secure entry into World Cup Super 8s. First match against England.
The top story on Gold FM.
International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva toured Gumpo, Manhattan this morning to assess the severe damage caused by Cyclone Ditwa. Following her visit, she is set to meet President Anurakumara Dissanayake, Prime Minister Harini Amarasuriya and Central Bank Governor Nandalal Veerasinghe in Colombo for high-level talks. Deputy Finance Minister Anil Jayanta Fernando welcomed the IMF delegation upon their arrival yesterday. Georgieva is set to depart for New Delhi later today to attend the AI Impact Summit. Now, meanwhile, UK Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy arrived in the island with a 7-member delegation to monitor the utilisation of British humanitarian aid provided for cyclone relief. Lammy is set to hold discussions with the President, the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Vijay Herath before his departure this evening. Meanwhile, President Anurakumara Dissanayake too is set to travel to India today at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He joins leaders from 20 nations at the AI Impact Summit 2026 in New Delhi, where he delivers an address on the responsible use of artificial intelligence this Thursday. The 5-day summit includes bilateral meetings between the President and various heads of states, including Prime Minister Modi.
This is the local news on Gold FM.
Police investigations into the fatal shooting of a lawyer and his wife in Akrakoda now implicate more than 7 individuals. Detectives confirm the identity of 5 suspects involved in the attack. 2 brothers aged 20 and 24 remain in custody for aiding and abetting the crime. Authorities expect to obtain a 48-hour detention order from the Kadula Magistrates Court today. Reports suggested that alleged organized criminals known as Malwani Tutu and Modara Nipura directed the siblings to manage local drug networks and monitor the couple's daily routine. The suspects tracked the victims as they travelled home from work between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. each day. Evidence shows the brothers provided narcotics and logistical support to a gunman at a Pandibidia guest house 3 days prior to the killings. A second shooter joined the operation on the day of the incident. Under orders from their overseas handlers, the brothers rented a black car from Kottava and retrieved a bag of firearms delivered to Kotikavatta. Following the delivery of these weapons to their gunman near a supermarket, the duo fled towards Hokandara. Police intercepted and arrested the pair while they attempted to return the rental vehicle, which officials currently hold as evidence. Now, Fitch Ratings has officially introduced Climate Vulnerability Signals, a screening tool designed to factor climate-related risks into sovereign credit ratings between 2030 and 2050. While traditionally focused on political and economic indicators, the new framework acknowledges that extreme weather events are now direct drivers of fiscal instability. For Sri Lanka, already reeling from the economic and physical devastation of Cyclone Ditwa, this shift represents a significant new hurdle in its path to debt sustainability and international borrowing. Professor Priyanka Dunasinghe of the University of Colombo explains the shift in credit rating methodology, where climate risk is now being elevated to the same level of importance as political stability and GDP growth when assessing a country's ability to repay debt.
What Fitch is aiming at doing is to basically take into account the climate related risk in their national rating, sovereign ratings. When they do sovereign rating, they plan to take into account the climate related risk. Now, traditionally, they take into account the factors such as economy related risk, then the political risk and various policy risk and so on and so forth. They tend to traditionally take into account when they issue or look into credit ratings, that the credit rating form the investors to the level of risk associated with any financial instruments.
Analysing the local context, Professor Dhunusingha warns that Sri Lanka's high vulnerability to extreme weather will likely result in a higher risk premium, forcing the country to borrow at a much higher cost than its peers.
The context of Sri Lanka, this is not positive at all. Sri Lanka is ranked one of the climate vulnerable countries. Once they incorporated into their credit ratings, the possibility is high that the risk premium associated with the debt instruments to increase. That certainly affects our borrowing capacities. In particular, we have to borrow at a higher cost than the previous levels. And all the studies clearly indicate Sri Lanka will be affected by extreme weather events, not just the rain and the cyclone, but also the rising temperature, and as a result of that having impact on our agriculture product, we will be in a disadvantaged position with this new credit rating system.
In more local news, a 58-year-old man was arrested at Bandaranaike International Airport this morning while attempting to smuggle 12,000 foreign cigarettes into the country. The arrest was made at the arrivals terminal following a tip-off received by officers of the Police Narcotics Bureau. The suspect, a resident of Gampol, is currently under further investigation by the PNB. Now, in the meantime, a 35-year-old man was arrested in Kotuvila, Vallampetia with 50 grams and 960 milligrams of ice during a raid by the Special Task Force Camp Javardhanapura based on a tip-off. In a separate operation, a 42-year-old suspect was also taken into custody in Sumatipura, Mattakkuliya with 147 grams and 900 milligrams of heroin by officers of the Colombo North Divisional Crime Investigation Bureau. Police said further investigation into both incidents are underway. The 2025 Ordinary Level Examinations begins today at 3,545 centres across Sri Lanka. Commissioner General of Examinations Indika Kumari Liyanage directed 451,463 candidates to report to venues at least 1 hour before the scheduled start. Officials urged students to maintain strict focus on the official examination timetable throughout the period. This island-wide assessment concludes on 26 February 2026. In more local news, the Committee on Public Finance approved the Microfinance and Credit Regulatory Authority Bill on 11th February, introducing stricter oversight from the money lending sector. The legislation establishes a new authority to license all lenders, including digital and online platforms, while repealing the 2016 Microfinance Act. COPEF Chair Harsha De Silva noted that revised draft addresses previous constitutional concerns raised by the Supreme Court. The authority will also hold powers to set maximum interest rates and delegate routine licensing tasks to divisional secretariats to improve regional access. The Colombo District Court issued an interim injunction today to block the Sri Lanka Freedom Party's decision to suspend the party membership of Member of Parliament Dayasiri Jayasekara. The court reached this decision following a complaint filed by Jayasekara. However, the judge declined a request for an order to prevent any interference with his role as the SLFP General Secretary. Jayasekara previously argued that the court already recognized him as the General Secretary and sought a formal directive to continue his duties without obstruction. This legal dispute follows a decision made on the 6th of September 2023 by the SLFP Political Bureau, led by former President Maithripala Sirisena, to suspend his membership. Train services on the Colombo-Trincomalee line faced significant disruptions today following a derailment caused by a collision with a wild elephant. The Trincomalee-bound night mail train struck the animal near the 151-mile post in Kitultua, resulting in the elephant's death and causing several carriages to leave the tracks. Railway control confirmed the elephant was attempting to cross between the Kadulla and Somavati forest reserves when the incident occurred. Engineering teams are working to clear the line while authorities investigate the collision in the known wildlife corridor.
Now for some news in brief.
Dr. Mahinda Parakrama Dissanayake assumed duties as chairman of the Sri Lanka Port Authority today after receiving his appointment letter from the Ports and Civil Aviation Minister Anura Karunatilaka.
The business news on Gold FM.
Sri Lanka's purchasing managers' indices indicate continued growth in both manufacturing and services for January despite a slight easing from December's seasonal peak. The manufacturing PMI recorded 56.1 as new orders and production expanded, while the services PMI reached 64.5 led by gains in wholesale trade and financial services. Employment rose across both sectors as firms increased in staff to meet sustained demand. Prime Lands Residencies PLC reported a profit after tax of 562.3 million rupees for the December 2025 quarter, marking a 144% year-on-year increase. Revenue climbed 43% to 2.80 billion rupees, driven by rapid construction progress at key Colombo projects. Despite a 100 million rupee donation to the Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund, operating profits rose by 147% due to improved margins and efficient procurement. The company's 9-month profit now stands at 1.50 million rupees, reflecting a 68% growth compared to the previous year.
International news on Gold FM.
The United States and Iran prepare for a high-stakes second round of nuclear negotiations in Geneva today against a backdrop of intensifying military activity. President Donald Trump ordered the world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, to join the USS Abraham Lincoln in the Middle East as a clear signal of American pressure. President Trump says he will be involved indirectly in the second round of high-stakes nuclear negotiations, with Iran starting today in Geneva. Speaking aboard Air Force One, the president noted that Tehran appears motivated to reach a deal after experiencing the consequences of US airstrikes on its nuclear sites last summer. While envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner traveled to Switzerland for the talks, President Trump continues to warn that force remains an option to ensure Iran never develops a nuclear weapon. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi arrived in Geneva yesterday, meeting with the United Nations nuclear chief Rafael Grossi to discuss technical solutions for a fair and equitable deal. Araghchi emphasized that Iran will not submit to threats, even as the Revolutionary Guard Corps conducts live fire drills in the strategic Strait of Hormuz.
Entertainment news on Gold FM.
Prolific documentarian Frederick Weissman died on Monday at the age of 96 following a career that spanned nearly 6 decades. The Weissman family and Zipporah Films announced his passing, celebrating a body of work that provided a cinematic record of social institutions from Titicut Follies to Menace Claris.
Sports news on Gold FM.
Pathum Nissanka struck a magnificent unbeaten century in Pallekele to guide Sri Lanka into the T20 World Cup Super 8s while leaving Australia on the brink of elimination. Chasing 182 for victory, Nissanka and Kusal Mendis anchored a dominant 8-wicket win that sent the home crowd into a frenzy. Now, despite losing Kusal Perera early to Marcus Stoinis, the Sri Lankan top order dismantled the Australian bowling attack, with Nissanka reaching his milestone and finishing the match with 2 overs to spare. The victory appeared unlikely during the initial stages as Mitchell Marsh and Travis Head launched a brutal assault, taking Australia at 104 in just over 8 overs. However, the momentum shifted dramatically when Dushan Hemantha dismissed Head for 56. Sri Lanka spinners led by Hemantha and Dunitwa Lalage triggered a massive collapse that saw the visitors lose 10 wickets for just 77 runs. The shift in momentum was epitomized by Nissanka with a spectacular leaping catch at backward point to dismiss Glenn Maxwell. Dushmantha Chamira provided clinical support at the death, ensuring that Australia's total remained within reach despite an early injury to pace spearhead Matisha Patirana. Australia now faces a potential exit from the tournament, requiring a mathematical miracle to progress after failing to defend a total that once looked destined to exceed 200. While Marsh and Head provided a vintage start, the middle order faltered against the turning ball. Adam Zampa, Australia's premier spinner, went wicketless as Nissank and Mendes exploited the conditions with precision. Sri Lanka enters the next round with significant momentum, while the 2021 champions remain in the lap of the gods. Sri Lanka is set to take on Zimbabwe in their final group stage match on the 19th of February at the R. Premadasa International Cricket Stadium at 3 p.m. That's all the news for now. Stay tuned to Gold FM for the latest updates. This is Avinindra Soma for Gold FM News. Have a great evening.